Our loving and merciful God, once again, we are gathered for this wonderful and good purpose. Lord, we ask for your divine presence upon us and even to our speaker who will be sharing his skills and knowledge for us to give us new learnings in this particular gathering. Lord, bless us as library family and enable us to continue our work, our mission, even in this time of pandemic. Bless us with your wisdom and with your knowledge that we may be able to be useful to everyone, most especially to our clients. Bless this afternoon, bless us all, even our loved ones. Keep us safe from all harm and danger, not only here, but wherever we go. May your presence be always with us. This is our prayer in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Sir Valier. So, to formally welcome everyone, may I call on our acting university librarian for her welcome remarks, Assistant Professor Rosalina G. Binoy. A round of applause, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our third series of professional training for continuing education and lifelong learning. As we provide virtual library services to our customers, our goal is to continue developing our librarians and information professionals for us to be equipped with various skills in delivering our online library services. On behalf of Silliman University Library family, I would like to thank you for your presence and those joining us on social media. As we provide virtual library service to our customers, we offer a new philosophy of service, engagement, and collaboration with our community. It is so timely that we have this event today. Given this, let us all welcome another eminent mind, Mr. Rafi Cabistante, to share with us his personal and professional knowledge and thoughts on the topic, Speak Well on Camera, Public Speaking and Professional Skills. He will be sharing how we properly inform our audience, persuade our audience, entertain them, and commemorate our audience with our activities and events in the library. We need these essential skills for a better presentation in the promotion of our virtual library services. Welcome to another learning moment. Together, we can share this knowledge to enrich our skills for effective and efficient library service. I sincerely hope that whatever knowledge we gain today can be applied effectively in our workplace. May your hard work continue to bear fruits and lead to more initiatives that will satisfy our library customers.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Rose, for the warm words of welcome. So according to Rob Brown, if you can speak, you can influence. And if you can influence, you can change lives. A blessed and prosperous afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our third series of professional training. So today's webinar is entitled Speak Well on Camera, Public Speaking and Presentation Skills. So in behalf of Silliman University Library System, we welcome our participants for today's webinar, as well as our live viewers in our Facebook page. So currently, as of the moment, we have how many viewers are me? Okay, 6. As of the moment, we have 6 viewers. Okay, so welcome once again to our webinar. So before we get started, please allow me to go over a few items to to guide our participants for today. So the following are the house rules for today's webinar. So number one, turn off or turn your mobile phones into silent mode. So as to not disturb our activity for today. So for our FB Live participants, you may share, tag, or mention your friends to join this FB Live stream. But please refrain from posting unnecessary comments in the comment section. You may key in your questions and clarifications in the comment section, but it will be entertained after the talk. Number four, please stay until the end of the e-talk and make sure to fill out correctly the evaluation to secure your certificate of participation. So we will be giving everyone the link to the evaluation after the webinar. And lastly, let us all listen to the presentation and cooperate with all the activities after. So that's it for the house rules for this afternoon. And I think everyone is excited and ready to listen to our speakers. So let me introduce our guest speaker for today. Our speaker graduated from Silliman with a degree in mass communication in 2014, magna cum laude. He also earned his master in journalism graduate degree from Ateneo de Manila University in 2021. Our speaker has been in journalism for 7 years. In May 2014, he landed his first job as social media producer for GMA News and Public Affairs in Manila. As social media producer, he handled the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Viber, and Snapchat accounts of GMA News. Some of the major events he covered during his stint include Pope Francis' visit to the Philippines last 2015, the 2015 Paris attacks, Mary Jane Veloso, and the 2016 presidential elections. He left Manila in 2016 and later worked in the Freeman newspaper in Cebu in 2017 as an online reporter. He is presently the news director for 106.3 Yes the Best Dumaguete, handling the station's news operations and anchoring its morning news segment. At the same time, he is also the Negros correspondent for the Philippine Daily Inquirer. So ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce to you our guest speaker for today. Please help me welcome Mr. Ephraim Rafi Cabristante. A round of applause.
Afternoon. Wow. This is a different kind of feeling, actually, to be totally honest, because I usually talk to students, but this is the first time that I'll be talking to people that I used to interact as a college student. Let's make this informal. I don't want this to look like a class or something, because kita tanan yagi man tapos estudyante, and we don't like classes, although we miss it now because of because we miss face-to-face classes. But yeah, I still do remember some of the people at the library here who I interacted as a college student. Si Calibo, Lizares, right? Lazalita, sorry. Lazalita, pangulaman o libro des Filipinianas sa una. Actually, ibang ako. Isa na. Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, I used to interact with you as a college student, so it's a different experience really, and I was really surprised because I was expecting students, but it's fine. There's always a first time for everything. Anyway, good afternoon, and I've been tasked to talk about public speaking or talking in front of the camera. Well, this talk, I first delivered this talk back in 2020, early 2020, before the COVID-19 pandemic changed our lives, and in the context of that, talk, it was really more of me, or I mean, the participants really talking in front of their friends, or really talking in front of their listeners. No? So for this talk that we'll be discussing right now, I'll also be putting into some consideration the context that we are in right now, since all of us really do our jobs through Zoom and through Google Meet and through virtual. No? Although there are times that we still talk to our friends face to face, but most of the time we deal with our jobs through Zoom. So we'll also be putting into consideration the context that we are in right now, and of course how to present yourself effectively, even virtually. Okay, sometimes we have that impression na nabito sa balay, okay ra? Sa balay, so pwede na mag-laid back. Uban siguro nakapambalay ra ang short, pero polo ang isulob na. Because it's shot naman. But still, we have to put in mind, or bear in mind, that we're still talking to people, even though we can't see them in person right in front of us. I understand that sometimes it can be easy to fall into the trap na, kung nakita ko sa direskuan, kwarto, okay rin na, di ko makita. But we still need to remember that when we're speaking, although virtually, we are talking to people. Although sometimes it can be desensitizing because, people tend to just turn off their cams and mute their microphones whenever somebody's listening. Although that really is the norm. But we still have to keep in mind that these are people that we're actually talking to. And public speaking doesn't really necessarily just discuss or like in the context of you talking to random strangers in a given place. It can also be you talking to your family, or you talking to a couple of friends, or you talking in a group chat. So that still is public speaking, because technically, whenever there is already in the context of law, diba? If there is somebody, more than one person who heard what you said or read what you wrote, that's already considered a public. Piece of information. So why should I speak in public? I think many of us here are also teaching at the same time. So speaking in front of the class or speaking in front of people isn't really something new for all of us. So it can help you get a job or promotion in the context of students. I'm pretty sure that there's also students who are watching us right now through our live stream. Get good grades in class and a good reputation in school. Because when you are really a good speaker, it really impresses people, And it also gives you that reputation, and it also projects a sense of respect. It can raise awareness about your team and your organizations, about what you love, about what you're passionate about. May it be about politics, or may it be about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or anything that you're passionate about. Once you know how to deliver what you're passionate about and what you know best to people you're talking to, then it also gives them that impression that, hey, this girl is really good. It can educate others. And the more you push yourself to speak in front of others, the better you'll become and the more confidence you have. Now, the tendency of people, especially kung dili sila anad og public speaking, is that ulang ko basig masayop niya ako, or mabulol niya ako, or basin niya mablangko ko in front of people, which is quite normal because they're stage fright. We always go through that. Pero the only way to overcome stage fright is by actually being on stage. Or the only way to overcome the fear of public speaking is by public speaking. So if you want people to rally behind what you're passionate about, or if you're educating students or educating your peers about something, if you want them to really, really believe in what you say and what you also believe in, then you'd have to speak to them because there's no other way. Okay, so basic tips for public speaking. Let's say you've been tasked to prepare a speech, or you're tasked to prepare a lecture or a short speech about what you love. So of course, practice and prepare. That's really very good, unless you're very experienced, because there are some people who do impromptu. Right there and then, right on the spot, they can actually talk. But that takes practice, that takes a lot of time to master. So if you're a beginner, if it's the first time you're speaking in public, you would have to practice and to prepare. You have to write a script. It's a speech is like writing an article pretty much, except that you're going to deliver it in front of people. So you'd have to prepare it, you have to research for it, you have to get your facts straight, you have to look for credible sources for whatever you're going to speak about. So it needs preparation, it needs practice. Know your audience. Yes, this is very important. Know your audience. Your speech is about them and not about you. You have to remember that you are talking to your audience because you want them to know what you know, but it's not really about you. You're just the deliverer of the message, but what we're there after here is the message. So you have to know your audience, know them ahead of time. You have to find out what usually interests them, or what their backgrounds are, a little background check siguro, and then try to work your speech around the audience that you're talking to. When you're talking to students, it's one thing. When you're talking to a room full of adults, that's also another thing. If you're talking to a room full of senior citizens, that's also another approach. There are different approaches. When you're talking to kids, that's quite more challenging, no? But yes, you have to keep in mind who you're talking to, because it's really about them. And organize your material, create the framework for your speech, write down the topic, general purpose, central idea, and main points. Make sure to grab the audience's attention within the first 30 seconds. So it's pretty much like writing an article, except that you'd have to deliver it in front of people. So you have to have the main idea, the main message of what you're trying to talk about. And of course, your supporting arguments should be there. Your information or the facts or the data that you need to present to them. And of course, you need to cite your sources as well. That's very, very important. Just like any other article or research paper in a speech, you should also cite your sources, although not really in the APA or MLA or Chicago kind of way, but you could just have, according to the Science Journal or according to the Silliman Journal, there are blah, 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 blah. That's the simplest way of attribution. And that's actually the good thing about public speaking, is because you can just do attributions in the simplest way possible. And make sure you grab the audience's attention within the first 30 seconds. That's why effective speakers tend to start by feeling the audience, or by putting in an anecdote, telling a story, or a pickup line, hugot line, whatever takes the interest of their audience. Because once you get your audience's attention in the first 30 seconds, then you'll have them for the rest of your speech. Okay? Watch for feedback and adapt. People, first time story in front of the audience, tend to not look at the audience because they're so afraid of, they're too scared of facing people. It's like, oh no, when you're, I'm pretty sure that at some point in your life, nakasulay mo nga, you're talking in front of people, maybe siguro you're tasked to lead in a valedictory speech in high school, or you've been tasked to talk about something. Our tendency for the first time is we just look straight ahead, like, kung ako na direct, and first time ko mastorya, ako tendency, tanong ko punta sa CR because I don't want to see the people because I'm so scared of looking at people. But no, you have to watch how your listeners are reacting to what you have to say. You have to look them in the eye one by one. Look at people one by one because it's like radio. No, I'm a radio announcer, and we've always been told that number one, para dili mo ma-intimidate, and number two, to make the speech more intimate, you have to imagine as if you're talking to one person. So in this context, since this is a public speaking topic and I'm talking to a lot of people, you have to talk to one by one. You have to look at almost everyone if you can. Although yes, makaulaw na siya at first, but it's the best way you can also feel your way around the audience, see how they react, see how they take your speech, and then adjust while you're talking. Watch their reactions. Now, this can be really hard, especially when you're doing a webinar on Zoom, because you can't see the reactions of your audience. Because the tendency is they turn their cameras off and then they mute their mics, no? So wala siya ang tendency. But still, there are some speakers who request, na mag-request nga, please stay your please remain your cameras on, something like that, para makita ng mga reactions. Although I'm not really saying that you should do that, but you have to imagine, one important tip or one really great tip that I learned so far whenever conducting classes or whenever conducting lectures in Zoom is, I tend to focus on one person and then tanaw na ko sa reaction niya. Like, one time, di ba sa Zoom kayo, share ko screen and then there's like this small screen right here. Like, maragamay nga screen looking at the audience. So I tend to look at them, how they take my lecture, or how they're reacting to what I have to say. So tanawan, naman ko uban nga remain on gapon sila mga cams, even while you're doing a lecture, or a speech. So look at one person or a couple of persons. You don't really have to look at everyone. The same way in this context, I'm not really like looking at all of you, but I'm looking to a couple of people. But you have to remain eye contact because it also catches your audience's attention and it also persuades them to listen to what you have to say. Okay, let your personality shine, be yourself, and let that come out in your speech. Now, you notice I mispronounced something, diba? That's the one thing that we're always scared about whenever we're talking in public, but it's okay, when we mispronounce things, that's fine. We're not joining a beauty pageant anyway, so diba? Dili man ni Miss Silliman or dili man ni Miss Dumaguete, so when you're talking to people, you mispronounce things, mabulo naman sad ka. But that's normal, and we have to adapt to that reality. Now, if you want to avoid mispronouncing things, although that's really inevitable, you can just practice speaking. There are a lot of exercises on YouTube that can help you exercise or that can help you about some pronunciation exercises ninyo. But in my case, of course, I talk for a living, so over time but earlier, like in my early years as a job, I would go blank really. That's normal here. Everybody goes through that stage, come a blank and you're like, oh gosh, it's always something. You just go blank, and you don't know what you have to say. And that's normal, really, and that's okay, and that's totally fine. But the only way that you can be an effective public speaker is by actually doing it. No matter how hard you try to avoid it, you'll only get people to rally behind you if you know how to talk to them. Okay, don't fake it. Yes, don't fake it, because people can sense pretentiousness from a mile away. It's hard to fake happy or it's hard to fake what you're trying to, what the emotion you're trying to convey. You just have to be yourself. You just have to be that person who you really are. I mean, there's no sense in pretending to be someone else when you're not that someone else, no? So just be yourself, be that person you normally are. It's as if you're talking to people. You have a speech, it's well prepared, but the thing is, you just have to remember that it's as if you're talking to people. Because the more you try to think that you're in a speech and you're talking talking at people, this is the difference. You're not supposed to talk at people, you're talking to people. Because when you're talking at people, you lose the connection, and that really is the most important thing that you need to have when you're speaking in front of people. You need to have not a collective connection to them, but an individual connection to them. And probably this is because also of my training in radio, that we need to have an individual connection to our listeners. Whenever we're on radio, we do not imagine us talking in front of an auditorium. We always, when we turn on the mic, we always imagine that there's someone in front of us talking to us. That's why if you listen to the radio, they don't say, "Oy mga beshi," "Oy mga higala," no? They don't say that. They always address you in a singular person. Like, "Oy besh," "Oy kapuso," "Oy kapamilya." No? They always address you as one person because that's how it should be. Because that's how you could establish camaraderie with the person. That's how you establish a connection with the person. If you're giving them the impression that you're talking directly to them and not talking at them. Okay, use humor, tell stories, and use effective language. Effective language is simple language. Siguro back in high school or back when we were younger, we used to think that whenever we use highfalutin, flowery words, ma-impress na ato ang mga listeners or ato mga audiences na whenever we say this is an insurmountable something like your speech is kulang na lang inalangkad ng thesaurus. No, please don't do that. Please don't abuse highfalutin words. Okay, you are speaking to express and not to impress. Because if you're using highfalutin words, people won't understand what you're trying to tell them. People don't understand what you're trying to tell them, and you lose their connection. Like, somebody posted mo ko yan. Ito na, paano lang tagkon dito sa Dilina? Ano ba? Diba? So, sige bang yaw-yaw mo, kusabot, sabi niya, dugo ka na itong ilungan. Kumana ang reaction, di ba? Usually, basta, you use flowery highfalutin words. Just keep it simple. Keep it simple, conversational. Diba? I mean, again, imagine that you're talking to a friend. Diba? Hey friend, have you heard about the conflagration at the barangay captain's abode? That's diba? Diba? Wait, mas ka doon nakasunog to balay nikap gabi. Diba? Basta rin nasabtan, diba? So, effective language is simple language. How you express your thoughts in the simplest way possible. If you can do that, then you can already be an effective, not just a public speaker, but also a writer. Public speakers are also usually writers because they prepare their speeches ahead. They write their speeches ahead. Okay. And don't read unless you have to. Kada laging, di ba? Nadadalis ito ba nga? Naipapil din rin, di ba? Good day, everyone. We are gathered here today. Ano, di ba? Ano ba? Ma'am, speech ka ga-ampo. Di ba? Gatuko man. Ayaw. Ang guide na to, ang ato ang kudig-gudin here. It's always good to have a guide here. But as much as possible, we only refer to it when we forget something. Okay, but dili ta magsaling nga abi kay naatay kudig ko kay mo na gyud mo sige tagtapos sa tumatas kudig ko. Again, you're talking to people, you're talking to actual people. That's the number one siguro. I won't tire of saying this, that when you're public speaking, you're not talking to a group of people. You have to talk to each one person attending that session right now. Look at each one of them, look at their reactions, and adjust as you go. So maintain eye contact with your audience. No? Look at them one by one, and don't try to look away. Ako sige. Story ako, ato ka dito, tanaw ka dito CR. Wala man dito yung audience sa CR. Kasi sunay ka, kaminaw dito, wala man. Naman dito yung audience, di ba? So you have to talk to them. And usually, people don't really, unless if you're in a beauty pageant, when you do talks and you do lectures, people don't usually judge you for mispronunciations. No? They listen to what you have to say. Diba? Yes. Limang ginamali kaya. Pero lucky for us, we're not in a beauty pageant, so we don't have to mind our pronunciations, or although it's a great plus if you know how to speak effectively without having to mispronounce things. But it's fine. It's fine if you mispronounce a word or two. I won't put that. We're just people, we're just human. We tend to make mistakes. What's important is you know how to deliver your message. The message is delivered because at the end of the day, people don't remember when they go home. People don't remember and say, di ba, don't si Sir or si Ma'am, pronounce mo siya, sige siya, kuma, delay, no? Siguro, they don't remember that. What they remember is your message and what you talked about. And use your voice and hands effectively. Ano ba nato ang tendency? Nga na ba maulaw? Warning. Use your voice and hands effectively. You have to do gestures, especially when you're trying to make a point. When you're more animated, even on camera, even on Zoom, when they see that you're more animated, when you deliver your speeches or deliver your lectures, they'll really listen to you. And of course, when you know how to vary your voice, when you know when to emphasize or when to be serious or when to be more hyper, then that also is a way to get your audience stuck and listening to you, even if it's just online or virtual. Because you don't want to be listening to namag-iuban nato ng storya kay mura pag sa TikTok ng automated na voice sa TikTok. Good afternoon to all of us. That sounds so dead. Don't be yourself and be alive. Those are really important things to remember. Use your voice and hands, and because they can gestures, body language also mean a lot. When you know how to manage your body language, it also helps them try to understand the point that you're trying to emphasize. Ayan, grab attention at the beginning, close to the dynamic end. Okay, so the usual style of public speakers is that they tend to start with a story or start with a really shocking kind of I mean, that's one way, but there are some who tend to tell stories. Stories are like the most effective way of getting your point in there because you're painting an image to people's minds about the point you're trying to cross. And it's also the most effective way to simplify a very abstract concept. Sometimes when we're delivering speeches, we tend to introduce very complicated and very broad concepts. But when you try to put put them or try to illustrate them through stories or through anecdotes, then it also helps. It also helps in delivering your point. No, it's like this. Back when I was in high school, there was this classmate that I knew. This guy was really passionate about music, and this guy joined a lot of bands back when we were in high school. He liked to play the drums. He liked to play the guitar, and it came to the point where he tended to leave his studies behind. And since we studied in science at the time, very grade conscious among students, especially at the time. No? So unfortunately, after that happened, he just was so passionate about music. He was just so passionate about being in the band, especially back at that time when rock bands were a thing. He failed a lot of the subjects. So what happened was he got transferred to school. And then the next thing I heard, he finally decided that he transferred to another school. He finally decided that he would turn his life around and finally do what he wants to do. So he worked hard for it. He worked at a school paper, wanted to be a writer, wanted to be an editor someday. So he started off as a reporter in the new school that he was the new school that he was studying now after he got transferred from science. And then eventually he went to college, went to college paper, graduated with honors, took his master's degree, very prestigious university in the Philippines. And guess what? He's standing right in front of you. So see, that's like one of the most effective devices of public speaking that are usually here. The speaker talks about himself in the third person, and it's as if it's telling your story, grabbing their attention. So here's a rough outline of speech introduction. Like I said, the story, studying statistic, or fun fact related to your main points. Argument 1, argument 2, argument 3. Of course, always support your points with evidence, with facts, with research. That's why when you do public speaking, when you try to deliver a speech, no matter how light or serious it may be, if you're going to be talking about the MCU, I don't know if some of you know the MCU around here, Marvel Cinematic Universe, you still have to do your research, no? Have to do your research about how Captain America became Captain America. So you still have to do your research, and of course you have to verify your sources as well. Again, summary or quotable quote related to your main points, whether it may be originally yours or someone else's. If you're gonna use someone else's quote, please attribute it to that person and don't claim it as yours. Of course, I think we all know that since we're in the university, and our culture and our tradition, and of course, our quality of education as Sillimanians dictate that we should not be claiming somebody else's work as ours, because that's a big no-no. Okay. Now, just some tips on how to look good on Zoom, because of course, this is very, very important right now. More often than not, we always deal with our clients or deal with students online. So remember the lighting. Okay, remember the lighting in your room, even in just your own room, no? Stay away from windows. Ang window dapat wala sa likod, na nasa tubangan, because that's the source of light all the time. Kaya kung ang imong big window nasa imong luyo, tendency ana ba dark ka, bro ka naman isulas dulfo nga ngit-ngit na kanang dili mapaila kay maulaw kuno siya. Kanabang mga whistleblowers kuno hay ba. But we're not that, So we need to put our face out there, get proper lighting, because cameras are always very sensitive of lighting. Yeah, make sure the light source is in front of you and not behind you. Control your background. Now, this is very important. Your background says a lot about you as a person. So, di ba, when you're talking, like, kung kaya ka nagpuput kayo ng marag, yagiyang bagyo na yung mga kwarto, di ba? Lisod kayo, sabi kayo, makakaka pa ng tawanan eh. But it's very telling of who you are as a person when you're presenting your background as it is. But if you if you're really a messy, disorganized kind of person, there are always those kinds of persons. If you can't bring yourself to arrange your stuff before a Zoom meeting or before a Zoom event, then you can always opt to blur the background at your Zoom settings. Or you can also, if there's a background specified for that event, you can ask the organizers to get you one and then use that for your background screen on Zoom. Ayan, position your camera right. So if this is the camera, you don't want that camera to be. This is the ideal position. Diba? If you see my image right there, diba? Kita lang no. Look, this is a screen. So this is the right camera position. Dili dapat nakahangad. And dapat, as much as possible, direkta siya nakatanaw nimo. Or it can be a bit elevated and then na-look down siya gamay. But not, diligid ng tanong. Or diligid ayaw gid ng it's below you and then it's looking up. Okay, makita ay mong buhok sa ilong. Okay. Makita yung mga bungot, kita yung mga pimples, wala sa ta. So, you have to be really conscious about how you position your camera. Okay. Ayan. So make your frame look like this. This is the most ideal way of presenting yourself on Zoom. Diba? Straight ra. Ang angle is looking straight at the camera. Ang background niya is bricks, which is okay. Okay naman. I mean, simple background is okay. And then headroom. This space right here, yeah, that's called the headroom. It's something that TV people just used to be conscious about, but now I think everybody needs to be conscious about headroom as well in shots because we're always on camera now, thanks to Zoom. Because back when I was an intern for ABS-CBN in Cebu, I don't know, so many mong headroom mapakong. If your head is too close to the top edge of the frame, ang term na is napakong sa. So don't allow yourself na napakong sa frame. So you have to leave some space. Ayan. Ayan, dili ayaw nga niya. Pakong nga yung ulo, kita yung bungot, di ba? Although yes, I totally understand that during the first few months of the pandemic, when we didn't know much about how to handle Zoom. I mean, we were all forced into this because of the pandemic, diba? Before this, our dealings were face to face, so we didn't really have to worry about this. But now, because of the pandemic going on, we are not really encouraged, but already obliged. Now, this is already an obligation that we have to look good on Zoom and know all of this. Okay. So fill the frame. Remember to fill up the entire frame, but also take note of headroom. As I said, headroom is the tiny space between your head and the top edge of the frame. Position yourself here squarely in the middle of the frame with your nicely lit smiling face, filling up at least 1/3 of the space. So looking back at the frame here, ayan, napuno na siya, no? Puno, ayan na, that's the most ideal way of presenting yourself on Zoom. Not too near, not too far. Not too near, not too far. Tama lang. Of course, puno ang frame. Pero syempre, dili nang kanang dulog kaya mong nawa sa camera, makakita na siya kayo tanan. Okay. And then mind your microphone. Now, maybe some of you have already made use of nanay ba nga ni microphone siguro sa Shopee or Lazada, that's fine. Your microphone, even if it's built to a headset, no big, because we tend to like, it's a bit only, a microphone, but you have now with Zoom around and virtual meetings around, you have to consider your built-in earphone microphone as if you're talking to an actual microphone. It's still a microphone anyway. So it should be a proper distance from your mouth, just like any other conventional microphone. Depending on the microphone, it should be at least half a fist. Half a fist or a fist away. Fist away from your mouth. Too close, but distorted in sound. Too far, you can barely be heard. So a fist away is the right distance. By the way, when you test your mic, don't bang it. No, please don't. Please, without the mic, just say sound test or mic check. Sound test, mic check. But please don't bang it. Please. And how much time do I have? I think this is the last, second to the last slide. All right. I was supposed to give like this talk usually has a workshop with it, but I don't know if you have time to do that since nakita. Maybe you have to gloss over it na lang, no? So anyway, but yeah, if you want to do this, I advise to do this at home. Try to do this if you're really, you can do it. You may do this, you may not. I won't be offended if you don't. But write a 2-minute speech that explains to us what your passion is. It's an exercise that you can do at home. In your speech include why you should care about your passion and the same way you do. Don't forget to use statistics. You may do it in English, Filipino, or Cebuano, whichever language you're comfortable speaking in. Wala may problema kung mabilisaya ka. Diba? Hindi ko sa itong kaugaling pinulungan eh. Atong kaugaling pinulungan, maanindot, maanyag kayo. Kung dili na ito ang ikaulaw, mga storya ito binisaya. Tapos, diba? Matod pa sa mga bashers kay, wala ba sa United States, charot. But then again, of course, you can always speak in English. That's fine. Remember, the Zoom tips for proper camera positioning. Now, if you want to practice at home, try to do it in front of a mirror. Try to see your facial reactions, your body gestures, or you can also ask a friend to listen to you and critique you. Your family. Mama pa or hand, now ako big. And I think this is something that we need to work ourselves on whenever we're talking with people, and whenever, even in webinars, we have to really talk to people. We have to remember that these are real people. These are people who are looking at us, waiting for us, and listening to us eagerly to what we have to say. So we have to talk to them, not at them. And that's pretty much it for me. Thank you so much for listening. And I hope that you learned a thing or two from my talk. If you have questions, you can just, those are my socials. If you want to connect with me on social media, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, mail. Thank you. May hapon kalatong tanan.
Sir Rafi, everyone. Thank you so much, Sir Rafi, for all the tips, encouragements, and thought-provoking ideas your presentation has brought us. No? So, yes, indeed, it is one of the struggles of us, most of us, who speak in public. However, in today's time and with the development of everything today, librarianship, especially in the librarianship profession, so gone are the days where library professionals are seen as kadong mga tao lang sa library, buko na sila sa room or maghatag na sila libro. So wala na siya nga days karon, and all of us are challenged na to speak in public, to be the frontliners of information. So thank you once again, Sir Rafi, for giving us that challenge, and also for giving us the tips for the first step in accepting that challenge now, and also how to defeat that challenge. Okay, so right now we are going to proceed with the question and answer with the question and answer portion of our webinar, or the open forum. So please, let's welcome again Sir Rafi here on stage for the question and answer. Are you ready, sir? Pero maganda sa the question. Okay.
Before we move on to the open forum, there's this speech that I usually show to my talks. This is it's an acceptance speech. It's an acceptance speech by Joaquin Phoenix after he won Best Actor for Joker. And it's a really nice speech. And it's not your usual acceptance speech, but when we accept an award, we usually shout out on the thank you sa mama, sa papa, sa teacher, director, thank you sa no. What he did was he used that platform at the Oscars to send his message. So I hope that you listen to this one.
This is the first Oscar and fourth nomination for Joaquin Phoenix.
Hi. So, hi. God, I'm full of so much gratitude right now. And I do not feel elevated above any of my fellow nominees or anyone in this room because we share the same love, the love of film, and this form of expression has given me the most extraordinary life. I don't know what I'd be without it. But I think the greatest gift that it's given me, and many of us in this room, is the opportunity to use our voice for the voiceless. I've been thinking a lot about some of the distressing issues that we are facing collectively. And I think at times we feel, or we're made to feel, that we champion different causes. But for me, I see commonality. I think whether we're talking about gender inequality or racism or queer rights or indigenous rights or animal rights, we're talking about the fight against injustice. We're talking about the fight against the belief that one nation, one people, one race, one gender, or one species has the right to dominate, control, and use and exploit another with impunity. I think that we've become very disconnected from the natural world, and many of us, what we're guilty of is an egocentric worldview, the belief that we're the center of the universe. We go into the natural world and we plunder it for its resources. We feel entitled to artificially inseminate a cow, and when she gives birth, we steal her baby, even though her cries of anguish are unmistakable. And then we take her milk that's intended for a calf, and we put it in our coffee and our cereal. And I think we fear the idea of personal change because we think that we have to sacrifice something to give something up. But human beings at our best are so inventive and creative and ingenious. And I think that when we use love and compassion as our guiding principles, we can create, develop, and implement systems of change that are beneficial to all sentient beings and to the environment. Now, I've been a scoundrel in my life. I've been selfish. I've been cruel at times, hard to work with, and ungrateful. But so many of you in this room have given me a second chance. And I think that's when we're at our best, when we support each other, not when we cancel each other out for past mistakes, but when we help each other to grow, when we educate each other, when we guide each other towards redemption. That is the best of humanity. I want to, when he was 17, my brother wrote this lyric. He said, "Run to the rescue with love and peace will follow." Thank you.
One time, mas siya kumak-kumak. but you didn't really take note of his kuma. What you took note was his speech, how powerful it was.
The next 5 actors in the working heroes with fully
Ayan. And it's a fun fact, his last quote was actually a line from a movie from his brother, River Phoenix, who died years ago. So, diba? It's also a nice touch. And he started off with saying that winning an Oscar doesn't really make him better from his fellow nominees, but rather gathering together for the Oscars, or they gathered together for the Oscars is because they share the same passion for cinema. That's what it's all about. But he still got his message. You're still after his message. That wasn't prepared at all. And he's the type of guy who's not really used to talking. He's a very introverted kind of guy. That's why if you noticed when he started talking in front and he was being clapped on, the first thing he said was, stop. Di ko siya naanan, napaklapan siya. So even the most established actors like in Phoenix, they tend to be anxious around people at times. And they tend to be scared about talking. But the most effective way of delivering your message across is just to say it in the simplest way possible, without regard or without being conscious of the possible mispronunciations that you make. But what's important is you get your message across to people and get it effectively and get it out there. Yeah. So, thank you. Thank you so much. That's it. We have questions.
From the OSP table.
Grab attention at the beginning and close to the dynamic. Ano sa atin ang dynamic end? Well, it can be anything. It can be anything. It can be anything like in the case of Joaquin Phoenix, he used a quote from his departed brother. But it's more special that way. It's usually the most common way of ending speeches is through quotes. So the most common way is through quotes, but just because it's common doesn't mean that it's less significant or it's less effective. Use a quote that's very much related to your main point. So it can be anything. It can be another story if you want to. So it can be anything really. But what's important is you wrap up what you have to say. You wrap up. You can end your speech in any way through a quote or through a story. But your main goal when you try to end a speech is you wrap up everything that you have to say. All the arguments presented, you wrap them up in one simple sentence. You recap lang kumbaga. And then quote unquote related to it. That's it.
Okay, so
Okay.
we have another question, Sir Rafi, from the biology, Silliman University.
I've been admiring, sige, ako yung basa.
Sige.
I've been admiring your post on Yesterday together. Thank you. And I totally love the way that you deliver a message and information, both oral and written. Have you been to the point where someone refuted your stand on a specific issue? Sige daw, and how did you deal with it in line between respect and understanding the other person's different view? Okay, I usually don't engage with people as Yesterday again. We don't usually do that. We don't really entertain criticism unless it's really legitimate. Like something needs to be edited, or something needs to be updated, or somebody sent us a message that needs to be I mean, it's not really necessary you have to react to every single comment. But someone refuted your stand on a specific issue. Well, ano ba? Honestly, I have to be honest, that's a loaded question. But thank you for asking it anyway. When somebody refuted our stand, siguro the one important thing that we need to remember whenever we're discussing, especially controversial topics, is we can always discuss it in a way where we can discuss it in a civil way. You know? Our tendency mga Pinoy mga ta, no? Kung ano tayo laing refute, ang personal na lang ta. Personal ta or manyagit ta. Diba? But you can never get anywhere with shouting. We tend to think that whenever we try to get our point across by shouting, we get it across. No. When you shout at people, it forces them to cover their ears because you're too loud. So, siguro when somebody refutes your stand at a certain issue, you have to also make sure if ang iyang argument is really worth rebutting. You know? If you're gonna deal with it with respect, because you don't really have to engage with every other dissenting comment that we have, you know? Especially if the argument that they have to present is really like, you know, something not worth engaging with. So it's always about choosing who you're trying to discuss it with, because you know you can't really have a civil discussion with anyone, because there are just people out there, especially on Facebook, who will just try to name call you, try to piss you off. But if you can tell, if you can see that if that person is really willing to listen, and you can actually tell from how he or she is trying to get his or her point across. Feel mo pa lang, okay, this guy is ready to listen. Then that's when you try to engage with that person, because that's really one thing that kailangan mong basta ka nang mag-discuss ta, is dapat willing to listen to each other in the most, no matter how polarizing our views may be. So how did you deal with it in line between respect and understanding the other person's different view? You don't really have to, you don't always agree to disagree. You don't really have to evangelize that person into getting into your own side, because that's close to impossible, really. Just present your arguments, and if they did, okay. If they did get siya mataro, okay. Okay, I got your point. You got my point. Let's just agree to disagree, because we're not going anywhere with this. But please don't shout at people, because shouting will not get you anywhere when it comes to discussions like that. Okay, how do we respond to a public speaking engagement where once or everyone's status is being questioned, like kita ba dili there is a seminar HIV, COVID, TB, drug user. Okay. Again, you only engage, like I said earlier, you just engage when that person's worth engaging. I've come to a point, really, I'm a good person. I've come to a point where I don't really engage with everyone trying to refute my points. Because not everyone out there is there to discuss with you about what you have to say. And of course, to discuss your views and their views. Some people are just there to annoy you, or to make you angry about stuff, especially on Facebook. But if your status is being questioned, like for example, siguro if kung mustorya ka, and then question nila like how qualified are you to say this, then you can always look back, you can always tell them like, hey, these are my qualifications, my work experience is pretty much aligned to what I have to say about this. Kita ba tanan na natin sa seminar na HIV or COVID? I hope not, but I really hope not, but what we know with COVID so far, what's important is we just, we're all masked up anyway here, we're all distanced from each other, and that's good enough for us. I think we've already come to a point where, we don't want to put our lives on hold because of the pandemic. I totally understand that sentiment. So we try to move forward with our lives, try to make it normal as much as we can. But of course, at the same time, also, trying to still follow the health protocols. So thank you so much, by the way, for following health protocols here at Silliman. Thank you. I really appreciate, I really am glad that unlike other universities, as I've heard in other universities, dili sila kasulod bisag faculty tonight to at least here, there's still an effort to make things normal, although this is not the normal that we used to live in, but at least a semblance of it. Is the tonality of the voice when speaking in public affects the performance of public speaking? Yes, very much. That's why you need to vary your voice depending on the message you're trying to get across. If you're trying to send a sad message, of course you don't say it in a happy tone, right? It always depends, the tonality of your voice always depends on the message that you're trying to get across. Of course, when you're tasked to do a eulogy, you're not supposed to joke about it, right? Depende, siguro, ang personality sa tao nga italiwan is somebody of a joker, siguro, or if you want to lighten up the mood, sure. But normally, we don't do eulogies in a happy manner. It's always in a somber manner, diba? Or if you're going to do stand-up comedy, siguro, you're not gonna. Well, there are some people who do deadpan, but as much as possible, we do it in a jolly way, right? Whenever I try to do lectures, I try to be as jolly as possible, as informal as possible. I'm not really a fan of the class setting. I'm here behind the desk and I'm just talking from behind the desk and blah, 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 blah. Then ako mga estudyante ng tulog na. I don't want that because I know how it feels as a college student. I really hate it when somebody does that. So I try not to be that person, and I try to avoid being in the podium as much as I want, because sometimes this podium is elevated. Whenever if your audience ka, parang nice sense of difference din naman, because you're literally elevated from your audience. You don't want. Honestly, personally, I don't want that. I just want to talk to you. Siguro it's just because of my trainings or radio. I want to reach out to people, and I think that's who we should strive to be. If you really want to connect to people, you have to go down their pedestal, no matter how accomplished you have been, no matter where university you attended your PhD or your master's. It doesn't really, honestly, when you're talking in front of people, you still have to catch their attention and be relatable to them. Okay, how will you know that your approach is incoherent with the audience interest? Example, speaking in front of LG officers about solid waste management. Basically, you do it formally and professionally. You have noticed that everyone's fed up with it and yawning every minute. Is it possible? Yes, please. If kabantay ka nga natulog na yung audience, then there's no use staying in a formal kind of speaking, because when natulog na sila, that means that okay, you're being too serious, especially ang oras. So that's why when I was told nga alas dos, like, wait, she's tatay man eh. She's tatay man eh. That's why kailangan na mapabibo, no? Ako gito pa, personally, but we have to be alive, because if your listeners are dozing off, they'll never get what you're trying to have, what you have to say. So is it possible to switch to an interactive approach? Yes. Personally, if this is depende po na sa setting siguro. Anyway, we're not at the loose auditorium anyway, so I think it's fine to be interactive. No, it depends also on the venue. By the way, the venue also counts for a lot whenever you're public speaking. No, but if you're going to speak in front of LG officers, then gamay ra bitaw mo, no? Kung naram sa gamay nga room, you can always be interactive about it. And people love it when they're being part of the conversation. Whenever you try to engage with them through laughter, through humor, humor is the most effective way of getting your audience to engage with you, even though they're not really like talking to you one-on-one. So you notice that everyone's fed up with it and yawning everywhere, then you have to change. So, ingan na lang yun. Or from the very beginning, you have to you have to really study who they are. If you're gonna ask me personally, I really want the Babibo approach because siguro from my college experience, like I don't really like it when people tend to tend to distance themselves from their students. I'm the type, akong ganahan siguro in a prof back in college is like somebody who just shares with us what he or she has to say, and without having to put himself in or herself in that pedestal, diba? That's why I try. That's the kind of speaker that I try to achieve. Ano bang, just talking to that person, talking to people. Because again, nobody really. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, I know this is an academy and we're all, I'm not trying to discount our educational backgrounds here, but whenever you're talking to people, they tend to really just disregard what your achievements are or what your educational background is. They just listen to you as a person, just like them. So, ano siguro, it's not really stooping down to their level. No, not that. Lain din ang mindset na mo stoop down kasi ng level, no? It's as if nga mas taas kanina, which is not really dapat. You're trying to relate to them. As a communicator, you need to relate with your audience too. So, kung ganahan sila, if they prefer a Babibo kind of approach, then by all means, please do it. Okay? But of course, we also have to consider the situation and the context. Together with the tonality of the voice, does body language also affect the performance? Yes, very much. Body language also, because when you're comfortable with your body and when you're comfortable with expressing your thoughts, di ba? Pero kung makikistorya ka with a friend, di ba? You don't usually put your hands behind it or di ba? Oy, message na naman ka. O, di ba? Oh, di ba? Oy, guys, kumusta? Di ba? Oh, we're very animated and we're with friends. Di ba? So, we treat our audiences as if they're our friends as well, even though you don't really know a lot of them personally. So yeah, body language really counts for a lot because there are just some things masabtan sa ubang tao through your body language that cannot be expressed through your spoken words. And it's in body language na makita nila how sincere and how passionate and how serious you are about what message you're trying to tell them. So yes, body language counts for a lot. The tonality of the voice counts for a lot. Those are really important points that you need to keep in mind. Even in the context of virtual, even in the virtual setting, you would really have be more animated as well. Because I mean, boring na ganito na sila silang kwarto niya. Diba? And then they're gonna have to stare at the talking head for an hour. Laay na kayo siya, no? So, diba? Laay na gani kayo na maminaw ka us katao nagatindog sa liway gibuhat. Face to face na ha. How much more sa virtual, no? Ay, may paglatan lang YouTube, ay kakapoy naman. Diba? Although, you cannot control people from doing that, but try to be more interactive and try to be more lively, because people like it whenever there's a very animated and very passionate speaker. Makita mo na, like I said, you cannot really fake it. Masense mo na tao from miles away from how you speak na he really means what he says, or kung naman niya, elastic naman niya, ano ito? So, you have to be real, really. You have to be yourself. Right? I answered your questions. I went to the point where I was a bit blabbering, but I hope that I was able to answer your questions, ma'am. Thank you so much for your questions, by the way.
So thank you once again for all the questions from our virtual from Zoom. So I think Sir Rafi is now ready for the questions here from the Okay, we have our first question. So please stand up and introduce yourself, sir.
Simple yan, Sir Rafi.
That's sweet, by the way.
Hi, sir. I have one.
Actually, a question, but this is just to add to your point about body language and the one you discussed earlier about gestures. I would just like to share probably one of the most overlooked factors as to why the world was plunged into World War II. If you happen to notice, if you happen to know Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler, and Benito Mussolini, if you happen to watch their public speeches, they are very much animated on how they deliver their speeches. So that is perhaps a big factor on how we can, especially coming to librarians, when we're trying to make it a point or to deliver a point across our clients that we are here to really cater to their needs during this time of pandemic. So even that, just to dive into the points I want to answer, the points I want discussing about gestures by language, it reminded me of that. Now, overlooked siya sa una sa World War II. If kita ka-watch natin yung speeches, grabe ko yung ang pag-deliver. So, more.
Yeah, I don't really agree with their political views, but yes, in terms of, yes, come on. We did research on World War II. Their views were twisted, but it was a point. There was a point worth noting. Their speeches really made them very convincing. At the time, if you were a German in the 1940s, you would really be convinced by how Hitler spoke. You know, like how animated he was. You watch his speeches. You can do it on YouTube. I don't want to show it here. His views were twisted, yes. But how was he able to rally people behind those twisted views? It's because he was a very effective public speaker. He was very animated in his speeches. He spoke in German. That's why he was very relatable. He spoke in a language that everybody understood. So yes, I agree. I don't agree with their views, but yes, they were very effective public speakers. Thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you so much for that question. Do we have other questions from Mr. Dan here?
Good afternoon, Rafi.
Yes.
I pretty much agree with all you said, especially on delivery, especially on the audience that we have, especially when we know that both of us usually have audience na natanon. And it's really the choice of words and delivery where you become effective in putting across the message. But anyway, my questions will be more on our adjustment here in the library where we do a lot of videos for ILPs, where we do instruction for like certain activity or databases or materials. First is, since you're on radio, I admire so much on the change of tone, even in a split second, or change of different mood. So we here in the library usually forgets to put this as a factor, especially that none of the personnel is more into public speaking, so we don't even notice that we're monotonous already. That's my first. Maybe you could tell us how do you how do you become conscious that you need to change because it's already monotonous? And second is, when it comes to body language being animated, I don't know if this is correct, but how do you show animation without so much movement in the body because it's not the one usually being, it's not that effective when you're on camera, right? Not that much movement, but I admire so much those personalities of TV where they don't move much, but they still put it across to the audience that they are really animated. Those two things.
Okay. First, first
is on the tone sound.
the tone, yeah. Well, it really comes with, I think it's really common sense, first of all. Common sense gives me whenever you try to send when if you're talking about something serious, you be serious, of course you can't be jolly, like of course on the radio you can sing Uy, lagi po sila patay kanina po di ba tayo kayo. So it really depends on your message. So siguro one of the ways that you can try to change your tone if you're not used to it is to prepare your message ahead of time. Prepare your, ibutang nasa ibuhang ko di ba? When you're a new public speaker, whenever you're a beginner to public speaking, there's nothing really wrong with preparing your speech ahead of time. So you can also put in your own codigo, okay, I need to be serious here. Put on a bracket like, okay, serious dapat ko dire. Or in the next paragraph, okay, dapat happy ko dire. Nothing wrong with that. That's for your own consumption naman. So I think that's one tip that I would suggest. If you're not really used to changing tones in a whim or on the spot, you can prepare your speech ahead of time and put the codigo dito sa padapit dapat upbeat yung tone, sa dapit ang medyo seryoso pa. So that's it. And then on the second, how do other personalities tend to be more animated on screen without having to do so much movements? They just use their hands. Even reporters, they tend to just wave their hands around. Of course, not, I mean, whenever they're trying to make a point, they just move their hands. And whenever, of course, sa camera, magud sa camera because your frame is very limited, so you can't be really, you can't be really moving that much. And I like in this context where you can walk around, or you can be really animated from left to right. But in the context of in a camera, magud, syempre maulaw po sa cameraman nga sige siyang move. So siguro ibawi what you lack in movement, change it, make it up in the tonality of your voice and how you pronounce things. When you try to emphasize, especially I forgot to mention this, but pacing is also important. Kanang pacing, asa ka mo paspas, asa ka pwede mo emphasize, where you need to emphasize things. Of course, when you emphasize keywords, emphasize important points in your speech or in your message, you need to slow down there, put some emphasis into it. You talk in your normal speed of talking, but when it comes to to emphasize the of a certain point, that's when you slow down. Yeah. And then, of course, bawi lang sa hands siguro, no? Ako po, I tend, sa virtual po, animated sa tigaya but of course, you can't really move around, but make use of your hands. I hope that answered your question. Thank you.
It's more on because your hands, the speaker stands, they sway, and the camera.
Yes, that's very common. Ganun tense. That's why siguro some people really make it up for sa ilang hand gestures just to avoid swaying. But ito na lang nila ipagawa sa ilang energy sa ilang mga kapwa. But of course, you have to know where to do hand gesture. Diba? Hindi lang speak. Isod kayo. Isod kayo, diba? You can't always do that all the time. Anyway, are there more questions?
Are there any more questions from the group? Sure. Okay, so can we check the virtual from our Facebook Live, and we have any other questions? Okay, so now someone raise a hand.
Club the way na siya. Thank you so much. I hope that I answered your questions though.
Okay na.
Thank you so much. I hope that I satisfied you guys enough for your for that. Of course, again, public speaking, like any other, still takes time and mastery to get used to it. So it really boils down to practice. And again, like I said, this is going to be like the 20th time I said this, but it always pays to really speak. If you want to be a public speaker, then you have to do it. There's no shortcut. There's no shortcut in public speaking other than actually doing it, going out there and doing it. Again, people won't mind that you mispronounce things as long as you get the message out there and you know how to connect with them, you know how to talk to them one by one. Again, not talking at people, but talking to people, each one in that room. Very important. So thank you so much once again. I hope that you learned a thing or two from me. I appreciate once again, thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you so much to the library. It's good to be back here. Brings back a lot of memories good from campus. And thank you so much for this opportunity for me to actually be here on campus. I've always wanted to be here after a long time. So I'm really glad to be back. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sir Rafi, for sharing your time and knowledge for today's workshop. So at the juncture, I call on our acting university librarian, Ma'am Rosalina Dinoy, together with our head of the Leader Services, Ma'am Isabel Marina, to give the certificate of recognition to our speaker. So before that, let me read the citation of the certificate. Silliman University Library System Certificate of Recognition is presented to Ephraim P. Cabrestante in grateful recognition and sincere appreciation as resource speaker during the library personnel training with the topic Speak Well on Camera, Public Speaking and Presentation Skills, held on September 22, 2021 at Reference Reading Area, Silliman University Library. Signed by our acting university librarian, Assistant Professor Rosalina G. Dinoy, and our Vice President for Academic Affairs, Dr. Earl Jude Paul L. Tito. So let's go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, so sir, can we hear last message for everyone?
Okay.
Or for all the people out there, especially sa mga introvert who wants to overcome the challenge of public speaking. Do you have any last message?
To quote Nike, just do it. just do it. No other way to do public speaking other than actually speaking to people. And start with one person. Right? Public speaking always starts with, it starts somewhere and it always starts with one person. So I suggest that if you're going to do public speaking, if you're going to practice public speaking, do it with a friend, do it with somebody who can critique you, comfortable enough to critique you. Dili ka malain. Ay, magkalain po, critique ka. Because that's how we learn. No? And as when you're public speakers, when you're public figures, you really eat criticisms for breakfast. Now the key there is to choose which criticisms you'll take into heart and which criticisms you won't. And not all criticisms are really worth engaging, not everything. So know how to speak, know how to listen, but of course choose who to listen to, and know who to listen to, know who to take seriously, and know who not to take seriously. Thank you so much, and good afternoon.
Thank you so much again, Sir Lucky. Now to formally close, that marks the end of our workshop for today. And to formally close our activity, allow me to first welcome, let us welcome our head of the Peter Services, Assistant Professor Isabel S. Marino. A round of applause, please.
With the emergence of COVID-19 pandemic, most of our work and activities are virtual, and that for those who are not technically equipped are having hard time adapting the new normal. Today, we are honored and privileged upon listening to our great speaker for sharing his skills and knowledge on how to speak well in camera, how to speak well in public, and other presentation skills and techniques when we are in front of the camera. Fellow librarians, Mr. Rafi Capistanti, our speaker, our university librarian, Mrs. Rosalina Dinoy, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant afternoon. Based on my personal experience as an old school, facing the camera is not part of our daily routine, and that adapting this new normal was indeed a great challenge to me. Being in front of a camera can be intimidating, especially when we are facing a big crowd. When we will not look like natural, and we don't feel comfortable. Before, I am not conscious of my looks, my outfit, my background, or virtual background, my posture, my hand gesture, my location, and my smile. As long as the camera is on, that's it. Smile. Today, with the input shared to our great speaker, we are aware and guilty of the no-no when facing the camera. I would like to personally commend our speaker for a fabulous presentation. As I formally close today's talk, I would like to challenge everyone to share and practice the skills and knowledge we learned from today's presentation. Thank you and have a fruitful day ahead.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Sabal. So that is the end of our workshop for today. I believe each and every one of us here have gained more knowledge and broadened our views on the topic of public speaking. So once again, thank you so much, everyone, for coming and for joining our workshop. And also to our virtual participants, our live viewers in Facebook, and our Zoom participants, thank you once again for joining us today. And we hope to see you in our next library activity. Thank you, everyone, and bye.